House Bill 348, Representative Bourriaque, relative to public-private partnerships, permanent authority to include in comprehensive agreement a provision allow authority to retain liability for damage to third parties.
Representative Bourriaque.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, today I bring before you House Bill 348, which is intended to increase the state's opportunities. Yes, this is my first bill. I was supposed to say it sooner. I apologize. This is intended to increase the state's opportunities to access some non-governmental revenues relative to critical infrastructure projects throughout the state. This is at the request of the department to get some of our mega projects funded across Louisiana. And with that, I'll entertain any questions.
For a question, Representative Hubal.
I was one of the 40.
Where are you from, Representative Bourriaque?
Grand Chenier.
Grand Chenier.
That's right.
Have you ever been to Monkey Island?
I have been to Monkey Island, but there aren't any monkeys.
So what did you see on Monkey Island?
We can't talk about that trying to handle the people's business.
If I'm traveling on the ferry in Cameron, which way do I pay, east or west?
If you're traveling west, you will pay $1.
So if I travel twice east, but
free.
only once west?
$1.
$1.
That's right.
Okay. Do you remember a community called Johnson Bayou?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember a very famous accordion player by the name of Nathan Abshire?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember a famous song that he made about Johnson Bayou?
No, I sure do not.
Well, if I give you the name, you think you could maybe sing the song?
Uh-oh.
You think you could try?
I will certainly try.
Okay. The song's name is Les Maringouins et Manger mes bêtes.
The mosquitoes eating...
You're close.
What was the last one?
Les Maringouins et Manger mes bêtes.
Mes bêtes.
Oui.
Mes bêtes. I don't remember the last one. I think it's Mahine, maybe?
The mosquitoes are eating my cattle.
Cattle. Okay.
So now that you know the name of the song, could you sing us a few verses?
No, I'm going to pass on that one. Happy birthday was enough.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Huvall.
For a question, Representative Stefanski.
Thank you. Representative, where do you say you're from?
Grand Chenier.
Grand Chenier. I used to have a camp there.
Come on.
Where'd you go to high school?
South Cameron.
South Cameron. What's the mascot for South Cameron?
The Tarpons.
You ever caught a tarpon?
Once.
What, does South Cameron have a basketball team?
I wouldn't call it that. We dress people out. You saw last night what happened. I tell you what, if we were playing the Senate in the hoopla on a dirt court and I was barefooted, I'd smoke everybody. We're not used to playing on hardwood courts. Y'all learned that last night.
Yeah, I think the coach for the Tarpons only taught y'all one shot, right?
That's it.
What shot is that?
Bobby Boucher is a football player, but Bubby Bourriaque has a hell of a hook shot.
He's got a good hook shot. We welcome you to the body and look forward to working with you. Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Representative Stefanski.
For a question, Representative Emerson.
Hey, Representative, what's your name again?
Ryan Bourriaque, a.k.a. Boudin, a.k.a. Bourriaque,
So,
a.k.a. Bork.
Right, so this morning in committee, I heard you call yourself Representative Boudin.
Actually, the Dean of the House called me Boudin. That wasn't self-proclaimed.
Okay, well, I got a little bit nervous about it because then I thought maybe in 2021 for redistricting, you were going to try to take the Boudin capital of the world, Scott, Louisiana, I'm very territorial about that, you know.
I would
You're
never
not going
want
to try
do
to
that,
take it, are you?
Representative Emerson. I would never want to do that.
Okay, thank you. That's all
I apologize.
Okay.
I apologize for the confusion.
Welcome to the House.
Thank you.
For a question, Representative CONNICK.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And can you pronounce your name one more time?
Bourriaque.
Bourriaque. In committee this morning, they called you Boudin?
Yes, sir.
All right. Why is that?
It was easier to pronounce.
Okay. Thank
More
you.
familiar.
Getting a little serious. Can you look at your look at the bill?
Yes, sir.
It says provisions under which the authority may retain liability for damages arising out of injuries or property damage to third parties.
Yes, sir.
In the event that the qualifying transportation facility or portion thereof are determined to be uninsurable for such damages. Here we go again with jury trials. So, what does that mean?
Basically, in this instance, in trying to identify these potential investors and developers, they've expressed some concerns about privately accepting risks that are currently the state's risk. So in the instance of the Belle Chase Tunnel or the Belle Chase Movable Bridge, which is one of the relevant projects, if the tunnel began to leak, if there was an environmental condition at the project site, that would still be, the department would be permitted to assume some of that liability in a limited fashion in extreme circumstances with those projects.
So we give an immunity to these private-public partnerships,
Yes.
and the state will retain the potential for liability.
In extreme circumstances, in a limited fashion, yes, sir.
Does it say limited in the bill?
I think so. May retain is the actual verbiage. There was an amendment changing the word from assume to retain, that we may retain
And who would
liability.
And who would decide that? The secretary?
It is my understanding, yes.
All right.
The Office of Risk Management and the Division of Administration both reviewed the amendment, and they're both okay with the verbiage.
So if they need this in the law to be able to attract investors for these types of projects, is what you're telling us?
Hopefully, it will give some of the investors a little bit of encouragement to not be out on their own completely.
So the state would still be on the hook?
Which is already our liability anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Connick.
For a question, Representative Jones.
He waives.
Representative, as you know, this is my last session and my last term, and we've been very fortunate in St. Mary Parish to get a lot of investment. Do you have any kindness in your heart for St. Mary Parish?
I do, sir. Actually, my in-laws live in St. Mary Parish. I think they may be some constituents of yours.
So you married a girl from St. Mary Parish?
I married a girl from Patterson.
From where?
Patterson. P-Town.
Patterson. So you know how badly we need an overpass in Patterson.
Yes, sir. Sure do.
So in this bill, we'll be able to get some help to do that out of there?
I think that this bill provides an opportunity and a mechanism to expedite some of those projects. Yes, sir.
That was like a broad answer. I'm going to ask it again, more specific. Can we get an overpass out of there? Because it depends on how I vote.
I think you have a lot more experience in this chamber than I do. I think the people have a good representative. If you can't get the money for them, I doubt I can.
Whoa, that wasn't a good answer. Let's try it again. It's okay to lie, because it's something here. Sometimes that happens down here.
The overpass is at the top of my list.
I mean, you do want to go to Thanksgiving dinner in Patterson again, don't you?
Yes, sir. I would like that. My mother-in-law might not like that, but I would appreciate it from time to time.
And you want to drive in there safely?
Yes, sir.
And out?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I'm counting on you to get that done.
Thank you, Representative Jones.
Thank you.
For a question, Representative Henry.
Yes, sir. Just a quick question to follow up with Mr. Connick, and I'm still trying to figure this out. It almost seems as if we go into a partnership with a construction company to build a bridge or a road or whatever it might be, and they do a poor job of doing it, then the state is held liable for an accident based on the poor performance of that construction company. That's the part that I'm having trouble with. But one of the committees here is a litigation subcommittee, where when you sue the state, you have to come in and legislators have to agree to pay out of the risk management a settlement. And it's usually involved cases on roads where the road was built poorly, but the state was responsible for it. Here, we're looking at bringing in a third party to do it, but almost telling them, hey, if you do a bad job, it's not your fault, the state's going to cover you. That's the only part I'm trying to, and I'm not an attorney, I'm just trying to figure out how that works in the liability of it. If you're taking over an old bridge and you're trying to fix it, I get that, but who gets to determine, I think there's a may in there, who gets to determine who's actually liable? Because I know you don't, the goal isn't to make the state liable for someone else's poor work. That's the part I'm a little concerned about.
I think that being the law is still speculative, from my understanding, and I may need either Josh or the Secretary's assistance on this one, the assuming of some liability is on assets that are already ours.
Okay.
They're existing state assets. I would need a clarification from the department on once the new infrastructure asset is constructed, it's my understanding that this is mainly towards existing infrastructure assets that the state has.
Is that clarified in your, that on the existing? I would get if you're taking over a bridge, you're going to put it together. And I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I'm just trying to see how things.
Okay. Okay. If possible, I can return it to the calendar to get the question answered.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I don't want to. Yeah, I mean, we don't need to wait a day. I mean, if you can just grab it, that's all we need to worry about. Is just to make sure that it's. If you're taking over something existing, they're going to fix it. I don't want the state to be liable for somebody building something that's a poor job. That makes sense?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Representative Henry.
Gentleman moves to temporarily return it to the calendar. Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, Representative Bourriaque asks to call from the calendar House Bill 348 that was returned earlier this afternoon.
Without objection. Representative Bourriaque on your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Regarding Representative Henry's question on liability, I think we have a clarification. On existing state assets, the state is still liable. However, on the new structures, new construction that is conducted by the companies or investors, there will be performance bonds that cover issues with the new construction projects. All of these details are going to be included in a comprehensive agreement that all parties would have to sign at the beginning of this negotiated process. So I think that we are, I think those address the questions that we had.
For a question, Representative Hilferty.
Oh, no.
She waves.
Sorry.
There are no other questions. You have a right to close.
I'd appreciate your favorable passage. Thank you very much.
Representative Bourriaque moves final passage of the bills. May you favor final passage vote yes. Those opposed vote no. The clerk will open the machine. Vote your machines, members. Representative Gary Carter, yes. Representative Gwynn, yes. Representative Lance Harris, yes. Representative Pugh, yes. Representative Talbot, yes. Are you all voting? Representative Franklin, yes. Clerk will close the machine. 94 yeas, 0 nays. The bill's finally passed. Representative Bourriaque moves to adopt the title. Representative Bourriaque moves to reconsider the vote bill finally passed and lay that motion on the table. Without objection, so ordered. Congratulations on your first bill.